Good afternoon, everybody. It is 4 o'clock. We will go ahead and get started. Please call the roll.
Yes, Madam Chair. Councilmember Days.
Here.
Councilmember Dunaway.
Present.
Councilmember Fitch.
Here.
Councilmember Gray.
Present.
Councilmember Clancy.
Here.
Councilmember Tracus.
Present.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Harder. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The purpose of this special meeting is, one of the purposes of this special meeting is to hear a presentation and discussion of the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget and the general operations and activities of the St. Louis County Board of Election Commissioners. We will also discuss Bill number 231, which is related to a grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life to support the operations of the Board of Election Commissioners related to the November 2020 election. At this point, I will turn it over to Mr. Rick Stream and Mr. Eric Fay and any of their colleagues who will also be speaking from the Board of Elections.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the council. Eric Fay and I are here, and we've got some of our staff here too. Amy Blankenship, our budget director, is here, and we have a pretty simple budget for next year. We only have one major election, the April election, which will be countywide. We resume. We have one capital expenditure of $27,000, and we have two payments to pay off our new voting equipment that we entered into a contract with last year. Those payments are due in June and December, and that's really the only point of contention. We put those in our budget for the county to pay, and the county executive took those two payments out of our budget. That's pretty much the only point of difference that we have in what we submitted and what the county executive has presented to you all. Do you want to add anything?
No, that's, I think, the quick and dirty. It's really a status quo budget. We have no elections budget for next year. I think that's always important to point out, that the county doesn't pay for the annual April municipal election unless something is put on the ballot. If that's the case, if the council decides to put anything on the ballot for next April, that would require a supplemental appropriation. Otherwise, for elections, you'll see that the so-called state and county election budgets are budgeted for zero next year. It's just our general administration budget and our intermediate registration budget, which is used for voter list maintenance. And as Rick said, we are paying off the voting equipment purchase we made last year in 2019. We have semi-annual payments for those. We have about $2 million remaining on that debt service payment. And you will see, if you look in the budget, as Rick mentioned, we did request the two payments next year come from general revenue. The county executive did not take that recommendation and is asking that we make those payments exclusively from the election service fund that we have here. If the council is amenable to it, we would certainly request that we would make one of those payments from our election service fund and the other come from general revenue. Other than that, I don't think we have anything to add. We're happy to take any questions that council has.
Thank
Question,
you.
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Days, is that you that I hear?
That is me.
Yes, go ahead.
What is the balance in your election service fund now?
Yes, that's including the equipment replacement fund. Yeah, so after the November election, it should be close to $1 million.
Okay, and that is what you purchased. That's the money you used to purchase the original equipment that you're using, right?
That's correct. We of the approximately $7 million purchase, we had saved up $4 million in that fund.
Okay, so if you have 1 million that will be left after this November is what you're saying, correct?
That's our projection, yes.
Okay, and so what is the balance on the equipment? What's the balance on that?
It's about $2 million.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Fitch.
Eric or Rick, whoever wants to answer this, since you said the county executive took those two payments out and you only have $1 million left and you owe $2 million, you're asking for $1 million to come out of the general fund. Did I hear that right?
Almost, not exactly, Councilman Fitch. So the two payments for next year would come to almost $700,000. So what we proposed in our discussions with the budget director was that one of the payments we would make from our election service fund, the other we would hope to come from general revenue. We prefer not to expend the election service fund completely in case we have a need for an emergency capital purchase. If we needed to buy in an emergency situation new electronic poll books, or a couple of years ago we looked into the possibility of buying an emergency generator for the facility out here. So it's not what we prefer, but if worse comes to worse, we can run it down to zero.
And if you have an emergency expense, you could come back to the county and ask for a supplemental, correct?
That is always an option.
Well, if you had that emergency expense. If not, then no harm, no foul, right? How does that fund replenish itself? And will it replenish itself next year?
It has two funding streams. One is a surcharge on each election that's allowed by state law. It's a 5% surcharge on each election that every county's election authority gets to keep 5% of the cost of the election. And that's paid proportionally by each entity that puts something on the ballot. And then the second funding stream is what we call our equipment rental fee, essentially. So we charge what state law refers to as a rental fee on each piece of voting equipment. And that is, again, charged off proportionally to all the entities putting something on the ballot. So the fund does replenish itself. Well, not completely replenish itself, but it is funded by the elections that we hold.
How much would the April election bring in? Typically.
Typically, in the neighborhood of $250,000.
Okay, that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Anyone else?
Yes, Madam Chair, let me ask a quick
Yes,
question
go ahead.
about the salaries. If I'm looking at this correctly. I think your salaries they gave a little bit of increase there. What you have 78.1 people, I don't know where the 0.1 came from. Are you at maximum capacity for employees?
No, we are not.
How many are you down?
Down to 60.
Yeah, we're down to 60. So that's 10 or 12 positions we don't have filled right now.
Okay, so this, when I'm looking at, it says full-time equivalents is 78.1. You're saying it's 60.
Well, the full-time equivalents include temporary positions and intern positions. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I have a couple of questions. So when I was going through your budget, just a few things I noticed that I just would like to hear a little bit more about. I noticed that there was $500,000 in capital leases that were set aside for 2020, but not used in the 20 and not used and then not in the 2020 request. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. That's the debt service payment. So for the 2020 budget year, the budget office let us put those in that line item. For the 2021 budget year, they had us use a different line item for it.
Got it. Also travel. So I noticed a little bit of an increase in out of office travel from what was spent this year, or even in 2019. And even despite COVID, I know that we're not on a travel ban, but would just like to hear a little bit more about what the travel plans are for next year.
Well, yeah, just in general, the directors normally attend the National Election Conference, the National Association of Election Officials, in addition to perhaps one or two other out-of-state meetings that the National Association of Election Officials holds. And then each year we have two in-state election conferences, one that the election board, one of the election boards hosts, that's usually in June, and then in early September, the county clerk's conference. So that's the bulk of our travel. And then I think we have budgeted for our two GIS employees to attend the GIS conference next year. I think it's in San Diego every year. Yeah, in San Diego.
Got it. And then finally, for now, your original request contained a little over $700,000 in other expenses, more than what the county executive ended up recommending. What were those items?
I think that's just the debt service I had mentioned earlier.
Oh, it is? Okay, got it. Thank you for clarifying that. That is the end of my questions for now. Anyone else?
I don't have anything else, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you, Rick and Eric and team. I do believe we have a few public comments. So, Madam Clerk, please read the comments into the record.
Madam Chair, we have 77 public comments this afternoon.
He is back.
First comment is from Gail Crone. Please vote against grant from Center for Tech and Civic Life. This group has ties to ballot harvesting. Thank you. Next comment is from Carla Grunen. Please vote not to accept the $2,048,474 grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. They make it seem like it is just free money from a bipartisan group, but with no strings attached, but it's not, and we all know there is no such thing as free. It's too risky to open the county up to costly litigation and a lack of confidence in the elections of our county just because Sam Page wants to guarantee his victory with this vote harvesting and election rigging schemes. Several recent lawsuits have been filed against the city and county governments that accepted these grants, and this would set a dangerous precedent of allowing private special interest funding to influence our elections. Please vote no on the Center for Tech and Civic Life grant. Next comment is from Megan Hagen. I am writing in reference to the grant money from Center for Tech and Civic Life. This organization's key stakeholders include Google, Facebook, and the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, among other partisan organizations. If this year has taught us nothing else, it is that there are major organizations, especially in tech and big business, that are trying to use their power to manipulate the citizens of the United States. If we are to have any faith in the election process and its ultimate outcome, the process must be wholly unencumbered by corporate interest. This money has no place in our elections and will only serve to add to the distrust of the voting process. Please reject this grant. We have held our elections without this money in the past, and we can do it again. Thank you. Next comment is from Josh Shearer. Please do not approve of this dirty Lisa Clancy grant money. We all know it's from very dirty lefty organizations with numerous strings attached. Vote no on grant money. Thank you. Next one is from Karen Wessels. Please vote no to accepting the grant. Generally, I would always be interested in free money. However, I read and investigated the list of donors. Why would all of these organizations and individuals from outside of Missouri have so much interest in our election that they would contribute large amounts of money? Why is it that the grants can only be given to Democratic cities? I would challenge you to investigate each and every contributor prior to voting to accept the grant. It definitely appears to be dirty money. In order to maintain the integrity of the election, please vote no to the grant proposal. Next comment is from Shelly Powell. Regarding the grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life, it's known that counties who have received this grant are Democratic counties, and several counties have been sued because the money is viewed as bribery. It should not be okay to use Facebook to purchase votes in our county. Council members, consider the ramifications. There could be a lawsuit that would challenge our election. Refer to AP News. Group seeks to block election grants to 5 Wisconsin cities. And the Lansing State Journal, conservative group sues Lansing, Flint over undue influence from privately funded election grants. Transparency on how the money will be used to support all county elections and stipulations about how the money will be spent should be known before voting. Don't rush to vote before appropriate vetting and transparency is addressed. Next comment is from Nancy Rorden. I am deeply concerned about the acceptance of grant money for the St. Louis County elections. Nothing in life is free. What strings are attached to this money? Are there conditions for its use? How can we guarantee the sanctity of the elections process when there are outside interests buying into them? I am all for a smooth election process and guaranteeing the right to vote for all citizens. How can we accept this money and guarantee integrity? If this was coming in from a conservative organization with the same considerations, would you feel the same way? If your answer is no, then your vote should also be no. Next comment is from Nalia Abushan. Why in the world is the council considering accepting a grant from an organization that is involved with lawsuits in several other states? Why does St. Louis County wish to repeat the mistakes of the previous administration and further erode the trust of St. Louis County residents? St. Louis does not need any more outside influence. Vote no on the proposed grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Next comment is from Diane Clemens. I look forward to listening to tonight's meeting. I hope all council members have received the information needed to properly assess the election grant introduced at the last meeting. I'm especially interested in hearing Councilwoman Day's opinion of the grant and the need for the grant, given her experience with county elections. I don't claim to have knowledge of the process, but I would suspect the increased amount of absentee voting would spread out the work volume to make the election more manageable than in past years and lessen the impact of reduced polling place volunteers. I am always suspicious of special interest group offers of financial support for a public process, and this is no exception. I trust that this council will thoroughly investigate the fine print and protect our county election from undue influence, our interference. Thank you for your attention and service. Next comment is from Marta Fastino. I am writing this letter to urge you to not accept the grant money from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Special interest groups should not be allowed to fund public elections. If we accept this money, we are likely to find ourselves in the same situation as Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. She is being sued by a group of voters that have claimed that partisan operatives have doled out millions of dollars in private money for get out the vote initiatives. The Center for Tech and Civic Life gave money to county and local clerks in the state to print and distribute absentee ballots and mail-in ballots and add drop boxes. The goal was to increase ballots cast in only certain urban and predominantly Democratic precincts and to selectively influence the outcome of the 2020 general election. St. Louis County has enough negative publicity going on right now due to all of our lockdowns and restrictions. The last thing we need is a lawsuit because we are willing to take money from Zuckerberg and Facebook in order to steal an election. Next comment is from Samuel Cohen. Good evening, County Council people. Tonight's subject is Bill 231 relating to a grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life to support the Board of Election Commissioners related to the November 2020 election. Bill 231 is enticing you to illegally ballot harvest. Ballot harvesting is wrong. Ballot harvesting is fraudulent. Ballot harvesting is illegal. Ballot harvesting is a long disputed practice implicated in fraud that's come into the spotlight recently in many of these great United States. If you are in any way involved in ballot harvesting, you could go to prison. If you accept this grant, you are guilty of participating in this fraudulent act. Bad people are involved in the Center for Tech and Civil Life organization. Specifically, people who are using their dirty money, more than $2 million, to influence you in ballot harvesting. Back in 2016, Missouri State Representative Penny Hubbard was challenged and ultimately ousted for exactly this. Accept this grant and you will be ousted. Penny Hubbard tried to sneak this through before anyone knew to watch for this. Today, everybody is watching. We know what you are trying to sneak through. Mark Carter, my county council representative, will vote no. Mark Carter knows right from wrong. Mark Carter knows that prison is not where he wants to be. Mark Carter knows that he doesn't want to be ousted like Penny Hubbard. Mark Carter knows that Lisa Clancy desperately wants this fraudulent bill to pass. Mark Carter knows that Sam Page wants this fraudulent bill to pass. Lisa Clancy and Sam Page are so desperate to pass this bill that they called this special meeting just to try to convince all of you to give in to their fraudulent plans. Wouldn't it be a delightful sight to see Lisa Clancy and Sam Page in their very own prison cells facing each other? They could spend all day pointing blame at each other behind bars as we live our peaceful legal lives not in prison. Seriously, everybody sees exactly what you are planning to do. Just say no. Vote no to Bill 231. If you vote yes and it passes, you are immediately involved. This implicates you. You will be involved in something illegal. Typically, there are only a few people who know what you are trying to accomplish. Many eyes are watching. Vote no on Bill 231. Next comment is from Celia Danio. Accepting private grants to help with St. Louis County elections will impact the integrity of our elections. Please do not approve or accept the grant money from Center for Tech and Civic Life or any other organization. Elections need to be independent. Next comment is from Dawn Herbeck. I am in opposition to the acceptance of any money from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Allowing private interest money into public voting will muddy the waters of an already unique election year. Who applied for this grant? It seems to me like a 2-week turnaround is extremely quick with grants, typically taking much longer to be approved historically. What is their formula to come up with the dollar amount? Ms. Orwick, were you consulted on applying for this grant? Are you aware of the litigation in Wisconsin, Michigan, Texas at the federal level, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota regarding these grants? Thomas More Society has filed lawsuits inciting the Help America Vote Act. Dr. Page, does that society sound familiar? Please do not proceed with accepting this grant money. Next comment is from Joshua Baker. I am writing in opposition to Bill number 231 related to the proposed grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life, CTCL. Founded in 2012, CTCL provides election data to big tech companies like Facebook and Google. CTCL has also hosted annual conferences for left-of-center activists and advocacy organizations. Its annual budget, according to its public IRS filings, has been about $1 million per year up until this year. Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, donated $250 million, vastly increasing the reach and scope of the organization. Even with the best of intentions, there are core governmental functions that ought never be privatized. Certainly, elections are one of those functions of government that goes to the very heart of our representative democracy. Our elections ought never be purchased by any private entity, whether left, right, or center. The harm is exponentially worse, however, when the funds are coming from a source that has repeatedly proven itself to be deeply illiberal in their viewpoints, the very antithesis of free speech. Facebook, Google, and others have been caught red-handed censoring conservative opinions and viewpoints, especially in the months leading up to an election. Now they want to meddle directly in the electoral process. There is simply no way that the voters of St. Louis County can trust the Center for Tech and Civic Life, itself bought and paid for by the Zuckerbergs, to be a neutral participant in the electoral process. There is always an angle, an agenda, and strings attached with big tech money. We need honesty, transparency, and trust in our electoral process, not hidden agendas, improper alliances, and deeply suspicious voters. Controversy has followed the CTCL wherever it goes. We don't need it here. Please vote no on Bill number 231. Next comment is from Dawn Friedman. The last-minute meeting regarding taking money for ballot harvesting has hit my last nerve. These changes are now expected from the sneaky Lisa Clancy. Sam Page and Lisa Clancy are not deserving to call themselves civil servants because they don't give a crap about what is best for the county. They only care about what is best for their personal interest. These two are hypocrites, and when they can't handle the truth, they throw out insults to try and take the focus off their inequities. Special interest groups should never be allowed to fund public elections. This grant money should be declined. I also believe the best interests of the county are served by passing bills 220, 222, and 223. One person should never have this much power. There is a committee of 7 for a reason. It's called checks and balances. The county is not in a state of emergency. These issues have brought the St. Louis area together and crossed political boundaries. The WHO does not even recommend the lockdowns anymore. Open the county back up and let us all go about living again. Next comment is from Amy Avenzado. Dear County Council members, please do not accept money from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. There are 4 federal lawsuits currently in process for cities that have accepted funds from this group. We should not be inviting private partisan groups into our election process. When an organization wants to collect additional data, it is no longer a grant, it's now a bribe. Next comment is from Marielisa Scott. Eric Fay, co-director of the Board of Elections, told me the revised projected cost of the November 3rd election is $2.3 million. The grant from Center for Tech and Civic Life, aka CTCL, is just over $2 million. Eric Fay said he is not aware of St. Louis County ever accepting a grant to cover election costs. Yet he is fine with this grant that covers 87% of this election's cost sourced from Mark Zuckerberg. Eric Fay and Rick Stream, this is a dangerous precedent you are setting. Our election should not be sold to the highest donor. Councilwoman Clancy, on the website of your consulting company, you promote a call to action to dismantle the nonprofit industrial complex, specifically donor-focused, white, liberal-controlled nonprofits. This money is in opposition to your own movement. We demand proper investigation of this $2 million grant from CTCL. Eric Fay applied for this grant on September 24th. I requested he obtain the grant award formula from the CTCL, but have not heard back from him. This organization has not made their grant award formula public or provided it to election boards. If these grants are innocent and well-meaning, this organization would disclose its grant formula. Instead, they hide. Simple calculations show this money is not based on the size of the electorate. The formula is discriminatory in some way. St. Louis County is receiving $2.67 per voter, while St. Louis City is receiving $5.34 per voter. We should not accept this money without transparency of the grant award formula. Charities generally hold a neutral position because they are widely funded by society. The CTCL donations have averaged about $1 million a year since it began in 2015. In 2020, it received $250 million from Mark Zuckerberg. A donation of this size from one donor will cause this charity to fail the public support test and revert its status to a private foundation. Executive Director Tiana Epps Johnsons has directed other charities that have suspended operations. This charity and the director should be investigated to determine if there is abuse of the public charity rule before accepting this. Personally, I believe tax money should be the sole source of funding for elections. At a minimum, much information needs to be gathered, provided, and explained to the voters of St. Louis County before accepting this money. Next comment is from Michelle Desalvo. Lisa Clancy is now trying to get this $2 million grant approved any way she can and calling a meeting to try to at 4 p.m. today. Center for Tech and Civic Life, the Mark Zuckerberg money, is an ultra-leftist company. It's a Democrats' go-to organization when voters threaten to get in the way of a Democrat winning. This company is trying to give St. Louis County a grant for $2 million, and Lisa Clancy told the council after the grant was voted down last week that she would make sure it got back on the agenda for next week and make sure it gets passed because St. Louis County needs that money now. She told them when they objected because they don't know enough about it. Some of the council spoke up. She told them everyone got an email about it, and Ms. Day spoke up and said, well, she didn't, and then the others said they didn't get one either. They say this is a grant, but in reality, it is really ballot harvesting. This is where organized workers or volunteers collect absentee ballots from voters and drop them off at a polling place or election office where anything can happen to those ballots and any one candidate can make ballots disappear if they are not in his favor. This is what is going on here with this grant and Lisa Clancy. Since she can't be voted out, she is doing everything she can to make sure she acts like she is running the show with this grant, when in fact she is doing everything Sam Page tells her to do. It's really sad that I had to learn about local government this way and learn how corrupt St. Louis County government still is even after Steve Stenger went to prison. I hope that people in the county will see what is really going on here. This is illegal. Just so you all know, I have been a moderate Democrat all my life, and this isn't about what party you are with. It's about your integrity as a human being. Lisa Clancy, if you were in my district, I would make sure to canvass your district to let everyone know what a crooked politician you are, and Sam Page will definitely not get my vote. Democrat or not, you people aren't worthy of. Next comment is from Johanna Bodine. St. Louis County Executive Sam Page, County Chair Lisa Clancy, and members of the St. Louis County Council. We do not need or want organizations like CTCL raising even a suspicion of election fraud. Actions like accepting grants for payment of election officials from a left-leaning organization only further calls into question the legitimacy of our county government. St. Louis County already has enough questions about the potential corruption, paid enough lawyers, been involved in enough audits. Can we please have a county executive and county council who acts above board with the interest of all constituents? Is that too much to ask? Please vote against accepting election grant money from CTCL or anyone else for that matter. Next comment is from Vanessa Metz. Thank you for your time and consideration today. Allowing private money to donate to our elections can affect the integrity and independence of our elections for years to come. Several counties have been sued for accepting the CTCL grant money. Please don't allow Facebook to purchase votes in our county, resulting in messy lawsuits that will challenge our election. Shouldn't we keep integrity in our elections as much as possible? If this is approved, at this point, it is another $2 million with one person, Sam Page, in charge with no oversight. Government is built on checks and balances, and oversight is critical. Say no to bribery.
Continuing with public forum comments from Elise Waldman. I would like to go on record as being in favor of Bill 231. I am in support of the county executive accepting the grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life to support the Board of Election Commissioners and the facilitation of the November 2020 election. This is a very important election, and I think that anything that supports and enables everyone to cast their vote on Election Day is only a good thing. And from Tara Berger. Please refuse any and all grant money from Center for Tech and Civic Life. St. Louis County cannot afford the legal trouble that has been associated with this organization and other municipalities. And from Daniel Lansing, I write today to request that you vote no on the CTCL grant. I do not want private money from a special interest group to be used to fund any part of our election. I want a fair election. If there are additional funds needed for the election, I would imagine that some of the federal money that the county executive has could be used for the primary expenses. I am very concerned that the grant money would not be used on overtime, salaries, or advertising. I would be more inclined to believe that the money would be used to secure additional bought votes through funneling this money to only Democratic districts. If the grant truly was meant to help election expenses as a whole, then give it to the state and let the state of Missouri decide which counties need it the most, and then disperse as such. Council members, please vote no on the CTCL grant. From Debbie Bogar, I urge you to forego the grant from CTCL and vote no, as tempting as it would be to accept it. From PR Newswire, quote, CTCL is a left-leaning election activist group pushing major government voting initiatives in Democratic strongholds, which raises alarms about the integrity of the November election and demonstrates a present danger in allowing private groups to influence the elections. The group boasts that its major funding sources include Google and Facebook, and the group just recently received a contribution of $250 million from billionaire Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, end quote. There are several lawsuits already filed related to these grants, as I understand that only states have the authority to determine election spending. I believe we should steer clear of letting private groups become involved in our elections and steer clear of any potential lawsuits related to it. From Emily Haas, please vote against accepting the grant from CTCL. There have been numerous lawsuits filed against those who have accepted these grants, and St. Louis County can't afford another lawsuit. One suit filed in Michigan states, quote, the grants create an unconstitutional public-private entanglement that violates the federal Help America Vote Act and the National Voter Registration Act, end quote. Tom Verjeha, the president of the Thomas More Society, commented on the lawsuits filed in federal courts on behalf of voters in 4 battleground states. Quote, imagine a future where wealthy individuals can essentially purchase the county or city election apparatus anywhere through such creative grants to accomplish their personal objectives, end quote. Please vote no on accepting this grant. And from Marielisa Scott, Please deny the election grant money from a political leaning organization that will influence the election processes and therefore the results of the election. These grants should be refused. Our county voting system should remain unchanged and unfettered by outside influences. Also, regarding our CARES Act money, who is the steward and where is it going? The county council as a whole should be supervising these expenditures under emergency powers, supported with a passage of Bills 222, 222, and 223. We do not want history to repeat itself with the corruption of the Stanger administration. And from Nick and Jessica Moran. It has come to my attention that you were holding a special meeting today to discuss the CTCL grant. As a St. Louis County resident, I implore you to vote no on this grant. It is nauseating and naive to think that this grant, funded in part by Mark Zuckerberg, is there to ensure you have the staffing, training, and equipment necessary so this November every eligible voter can participate in a safe and timely way and have their vote count. This man is the CEO of Facebook, a company that repeatedly deletes, fact checks, threatens, and suspends the accounts of any post or anyone of an opposing viewpoint. In addition, according to Influence Watch, the organization CTCL pushes for left-of-center voting policies and election administration. It has a wide reach into local elections offices across the nation and is funded by many left-of-center funding organizations such as the Skoll Foundation, the Democracy Fund, the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, and the Rockefeller Brothers Foundation. Also, a few of CTCL board of directors have strong ties to Democratic political operations. This organization clearly has an agenda and therefore has no place in the voting booth. From Sherry Pello. This bill that is being rushed through needs to be completely rejected. The Center for Tech and Civic Life is at the heart of many ballot harvesting issues around the country. If this was a legitimate grant and not an effort to buy this election, it should have been given to the state, which could have distributed the funds. Instead, St. Louis was handpicked along with many other Democratic-led counties around the country. There is a reason why the government runs elections, because once private companies become involved, it immediately becomes partisan. There are some crazy things happening in our county government as of late, and this is just another one. Please do not add St. Louis to the controversy. Please reject this bill immediately and do not let it go any further. From Kristen Heffington. I am writing to express my concern regarding the bill number 231. The organization issuing the fund does not represent the people of this great county and therefore should not be considered. I feel strongly that in order for something to be in the best interest of our community, it should be something that this county is in favor of. This organization is well known for its underhanded tactics, election-related concerns, and does not disclose where the funds it distributes comes from. Furthermore, the need to schedule an emergency meeting with little to no notice for the general public, also known as the voting public, just reinforces that this is not the right thing to do. I have found that any issue that needs to be hidden to decide it, probably not one that the council will be proud of long term. Please consider alternatives to Bill 231. It isn't in our community's best interest. From Melanie Broyles. Please do not pass the bill proposed in this special session. We have already seen issues with this organization in other states that contributed to potential fraud. Our fair elections mean everything. Please vote no and represent the community that you speak for. And from Angela Montgomery. Do not pursue the grants offered by the Center for Tech and Civic Life. The grants from CTCL amount to bribery. Only states, not cities, have discretion about how to implement federal election law. The CTCL is a progressive and Democratic-leaning group who targets cities with progressive voting patterns to increase Democratic turnout. Election policy that favors one group equally disfavors other groups. This is discrimination and stinks of voter suppression. These grants are unconstitutional public-private partnerships that give an impression of undue influence on a federal election. The partisan privatization of our elections must not be tolerated, and wealthy individuals cannot be allowed to buy elections through creative grants to advance their personal objectives. The CTCL is currently involved in several lawsuits across the country. Don't put the county in a position to get pulled into similar messy and costly litigation by moving forward with consideration of accepting grant money from CTCL and its wealthy corporate benefactors. From Steve Webb, I would like to take this opportunity to share my concerns on the grant Dr. Page has sought from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. The organization is well known for being left-leaning and even in some cases found to have harvested ballots. We live in a community that prides itself on being politically diverse, so why take money from a group that could jeopardize the integrity of our election under the auspices of COVID-19 protections? I encourage you to reject the grant and not be controlled by outsiders motivated to influence and buy votes. If you decide to disregard my and many other citizens' inputs on the matter, then hold true to statements at the prior council meeting and ensure the funds can only be spent on health and safety measures. Thank you again and have a great afternoon. From Nicole Harms, please vote against grant from Center for Tech and Civic Life. This group has ties to ballot harvesting. And from Alina Schwepp, in regards to Bill number 231, proposing to accept the $2 million grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life, I strongly urge the council to vote no. The election commissioners claim this grant will be used mainly for overtime hours and advertising. Is this even necessary? Was there a need analysis done? Did the commissioner apply for this grant? The answer is no on all accounts. St. Louis County was pre-selected because it is a Democratic swing state. Apparently, no vetting is necessary when the money is unsolicited. Don't insult the intelligence of the council or its constituents. The CTCL is unequivocally a partisan ballot harvesting organization. Their two founders are registered Democrats. Over 99% of the CTCL's $51 million grants have gone to Democratic-leaning counties, and in September, Democrat Mark Zuckerberg made a gift of $250 million to the CTCL. There are currently 4 states involved in a lawsuit against them, claiming they have violated the Elections Clause of the U.S. Constitution and the Help America Vote Act. Do we want to add St. Louis to this list and subject it to negative press and embarrassment for the lack of fiduciary integrity? CTCL is shamelessly exploiting the fear of COVID-19 to make it appear that the grant money is necessary to conduct an election. There is no legitimate reason that St. Louis County needs this money. Accepting it would signify that Sam Page is not capable or prepared to implement the election. Council members, you have the duty to uphold the U.S. Constitution. Vote no on Bill number 229, which signifies that you believe that every vote should be counted and should be authentic. As U.S. Representative Tulsi Gabbard states, quote, no one should get in between a voter and the ballot box, end quote. From Christy Schlautman, St. Louis County does not need additional corrupt influence from outside leftist groups. Why would our city accept a grant from an organization backed by Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan, among others, that seek to censor information to the American people? Additionally, there are already lawsuits being filed in other states where these grants are being accepted. Wake up and stop corrupting our city. Vote no on the proposed grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. And from Dan Blust, please note that you represent us, we the people of St. Louis County, Democrats and Republicans. As this council accepts the grant from Center for Tech and Civic Life, all eyes are on this council and will be on you, Sam Page. Bribery money has no place in St. Louis County. From Lori Mills. While I am disappointed about the St. Louis County Council's choice to call a special session for consideration of a special interest grant rather than conduct this business in the normal meeting, I am not surprised. People like myself have been increasingly shocked and appalled at council leadership and lack of transparency. I can only assume that the intention was to settle this business with fewer eyes. I am glad that an informed citizenry is waking up and challenging the status quo, ensuring voices are heard. The Center for Tech and Civic Life is a special interest group, plain and simple. A perusal of their website and further Google search makes it very clear this is a far left-leaning organization. Should never be utilized to fund a free and fair election, as quid pro quo is of real concern. Even more concerning, however, is that the Center for Tech and Civic Life has several current legal challenges. In Wisconsin, a lawsuit asserts that the Center for Tech and Civic Life has progressive leanings and gives the money only to cities that tend to vote Democratic, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported. A government's election policy favoring demographic groups is an equivalent injury to disfavoring demographic groups, the lawsuit says, adding that the Center for Tech and Civic Life has also given money to cities in 5 other states, including Michigan and Pennsylvania, whose legislatures would not accept it. In Michigan, a group called the Election Integrity Fund is suing Lansing and Flint, arguing it's illegal for those cities to use private grant money to help run the November 3rd election. The idea of the federal and state government exclusively funding federal elections is to eliminate undue influence and the appearance of undue influence by private parties, lawyers wrote. CTCL's private funding of federal elections reintroduces undue influence and the appearance of undue influence into federal elections. If legislatures across the country are not accepting these funds, why would St. Louis County consider this offer? It would appear that our election process could clearly be at risk of legal challenge by allowing this special interest group to fund and permeate our process. It was not clear last week if funding is even needed, instead seemingly being pushed through by Clancy without collaboration from the council. Please vote no on this grant. St. Louis County deserves a fair and unbiased election. And from Gina Rogers, I read that the election grant awarded to St. Louis would be used to purchase additional computers for check-in and raise the hazard pay of poll workers. I have no idea why this council would not want additional funds during a pandemic designed to keep its community members safer. Please accept the grant money.
Next comment is from Lori Kirk. Please vote no on any bills to accept grant money for the election board. Accepting money puts the recipient in the position of potentially being beholden to the donor wishes, and we do not need this election to have any cloud of uncertainty over it. Thank you. Next comment is from Linda Skinner. I oppose St. Louis County accepting the CTCL grant. You should not accept money from an outside organization like this one. There are lawsuits in other states regarding the acceptance of these funds. You should work for all people, not just the people and groups you receive benefits from. Next comment is from Lori Carter. I am asking that you vote no and not accept the $2 million plus grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. This organization has been linked to ballot harvesting, election fraud, and recently has had 4 lawsuits filed against it. Lisa Clancy mentioned in last week's meeting, this is a grant. How many strings are attached to this money? You cannot get something for nothing. Why do they want to give money to this county? Is it because they want to keep their Democratic hold on this county? Lisa Clancy also suggested this issue was an urgent matter. How is this urgent? But what is happening in St. Louis County right now with kids not being back in school full-time and many, many businesses having to close in St. Louis County due to the excessive mandates of Sam Page not urgent? This county is in turmoil, and you think it's more urgent to revisit this issue by calling a special meeting today? Wow, we know where your priorities lie. Shame on you. Thank you. Next comment is from Heather Brown. I applaud the county council members that listened to the people and voted no last week on the proposed grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. This company is funded by Facebook and Google, companies known for partisan leanings and censorship of viewpoints or statements opposing what they have deemed appropriate. This company has also been sued in 4 states for the allegation that the use of funds violated a federal law known as the Help America Vote Act, which prohibits local governments from accepting federal election grants without state legislative approval, and as a result forces the government to play favorites in the election process. This is a company that subverts the election process using ballot stuffing and other means to help elect Democratic politicians. With that info, is it any wonder that corrupt Sam Page and his sidekick Lisa Clancy, who as the director of Gladiator Consulting, with the mission to disrupt and call for radical distribution of wealth, with a liberal socialist agenda would try to move this grant through with any means possible? We the people have our eyes wide open watching the moves of the county council. Please demonstrate that you are listening to the people and are not swayed by the cronyism corruption of Sam Page and Lisa Clancy. Vote no on the proposed grant for the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Support a lawful election without bringing St. Louis negatively into the national spotlight again by being subject to lawsuit for accepting this grant. Please vote no. We the people are watching. Next comment from Jason Talbot. Why is a private company donating money for elections? Elections are already run by the government. This is to keep partisanship in check. Tax dollars already support elections. When private companies start getting involved in the elections, this undermines the integrity of the election. There have already been a number of lawsuits filed against the Center for Tech and Civic Life company donating money. The November election is a federal election. Why is the Center for Tech and Civic Life not donating to the state so the state can disperse the funds? Has the Center for Tech and Civic Life also donated to rural areas? Why would St. Louis County want to accept a donation from a private company knowing there may be a potential of court costs down the road as there are in other parts of the country? Why is this donation being given and hurried when we are within 30 days of the election? Why does this bill require a last-minute special meeting before the regular council meeting? If the money is needed, why hasn't the federal relief funds been used? If Bill 231 is passed, what elected officials will oversee this money? Next comment is from Heather Erbach. Vote no on the proposed grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Next comment is from Margaret Graham. I am writing to voice my opposition to the St. Louis County Council accepting election grant funds from the organization affiliated with Mark Zuckerberg. In attempting to rush through the approval of this funding without any input, it appears as though some council members would like to keep the Steve Stinger era of county-level corruption and deceit alive, well, and growing. Ms. Clancy's characterization of the Center for Tech and Civil Life as just a grant during last week's call is a gross mischaracterization of what the money that Mark Zuckerberg is donating would be used for. Her pathetic attempt at quickly passing approval, even though many of the council members had received no information on the CTCL funding, is troubling. Maybe she didn't want the council or the public to know that this grant has been described as a way to enable privatization of the election process, or that lawsuits have been filed to stop this funding in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, or that cities cannot accept private funding to be used in election processes. From listening to Ms. Clancy over the past 4 weeks and reading her comments, tweets, and quotes about residents of St. Louis County who dare to disagree with her, I believe that is exactly what she is trying to do, and it needs to end. The rush to dismantle democracy at the local level is frightening. Please do not approve the acceptance of this thinly disguised illegal grant. Thank you. Next comment is from Paula Harden. Please vote no on the proposed grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Lawsuits have been filed in at least 3 states against this organization. Phil Klein, director of the Amstead Project of the Thomas More Society, who represents Wisconsin Voters Alliance, commented, quote, allowing private monies to control state spending on voter turnout is an invitation to the state to engage in partisan politics in the operation of elections that represents a present danger that favors one class of voters at the expense of others, end quote. Alleged fraudulent outside influences are not needed here. What we do need and expect in St. Louis County is a fair election process free of outside election meddling. Thank you for making sure election integrity remains intact in St. Louis County. Vote no for the CTCL election grant. Next comment is from Colette Nicholson. Do not allow Facebook, Center for Tech and Civic Life, to purchase votes in our county. This is unethical and result in an expensive and disastrous lawsuit that will undoubtedly challenge our election. 4 lawsuits have already been filed against government councils that have accepted grant funds from Mark Zuckerberg's organization, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania, and this should be obvious to all council members that this grant is illegal. There is no integrity in accepting this money. The very last thing that our county needs is added financial distress and a lawsuit. If you approve and accept this grant, not only will the county be sued, but each of you that votes for it will be included in the lawsuit. I would hope you would be aware of this without having to be told to make the right decision. Vote against the grant and save taxpayers' money. This projected budget for St. Louis County cannot handle the drain of a lawsuit of this magnitude, nor should we allow outside influences to favor certain classes of voters over others. Stay honest and serve with integrity. Next comment is from Becky Kissel. Please vote no on the proposed grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Considering the controversy and lawsuits in other states surrounding this organization, it would be most wise to steer clear of it and not expose the citizens of St. Louis County to the potential legal costs that could far outweigh the grant award. Next comment is from Cassandra Saxon. Why are you pushing to privatize our election process? Please do not accept money from any private entities such as the Center for Tech and Civic Life, CTCL. You might be okay with this now because you feel that this group will skew the election's results your way. However, this opens the door for any organization to influence free elections in this country. No organization or individual should be able to buy the rights to undermine our election process. Why would you want this? Are you so desperate that you don't feel your candidates can stand on their own merit? No matter your political affiliation, you cannot think this is morally right. By voting yes to accept this money, you are basically saying you are willing to give up the freedom that this country was founded on to get your way. You are not voting for your constituents, you are voting for yourself. Please vote no on accepting money from the CTCL. Thank you. Next comment is from Elaine Divis. I strongly oppose the County Council acceptance of the grant from Center for Tech and Civic Life. All counties who have been given this grant have been Democratic counties, and several counties have been sued because the money amounts to bribery. This is Mark Zuckerberg funneling money and enables Facebook to purchase votes in our county that will undoubtedly challenge our election process. The Center for Tech and Civic Life targeted its grants to increase turnout in cities with progressive voting patterns, according to a lawsuit filed Tuesday in U.S. District Court for the Western District of Michigan. The grants create an unconstitutional public-private entanglement that violates the Federal Help American Vote Act and the National Voter Registration Act, the suit argues. The grants are constitutionally impermissible public-private partnerships that give an appearance of undue influence on a federal election. In accepting the grants, St. Louis County will circumvent a legally authorized process by which money for running elections is distributed by states with guidance from the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission to city and county clerks. The idea of the federal and state government excessively funding federal elections is to eliminate undue influence and the appearance of undue influence by private parties. Lawyers for the Election Integrity Fund wrote, CTCL's private funding of federal elections reintroduces undue influence and the appearance of undue influence into federal elections. It is both deceptive and illegal for the St. Louis County Council to accept funding from the CTCL organization, and I urge you to vote against any funding from CTCL or similar organizations trying to buy or influence our local elections. Thank you for protecting our election process and voting against CTCL grants or funds. The next statement is from Shannon Robinson. The grant money from the CTCL is not just free money, it is essentially considered a bribe. If you are saying this money is used to help an election, then why isn't it given to the state for the state to decide how it should be dispersed? Why is this money also only given to Democratic counties and cities? That doesn't alarm you? It doesn't matter that we have a chairman that is Republican. What matters is the county will be heavily stacked to provide extra support, which puts other counties in an unfair advantage. When money is being poured into a very heavy Democratic county to get as many Democratic voters as possible to vote, whether bus to polls or bus to the libraries or facilities that will be staffed with the extra money that will hold the machines you will purchase to count the thousands of absentee votes the Democrats are pushing for. This is the agenda to ensure this county selects the Democratic nominee. I am asking that you consider your stance on the grant from the CTCL. There have been lawsuits filed in Michigan by the Election Integrity Fund, in Wisconsin by the Wisconsin Voters Alliance, in Minnesota by the Minnesota Voters Alliance, and in Pennsylvania by 2 congressional candidates and multiple state House members. All 4 states swung in favor of Donald Trump in 2016, but the cities whose election efforts are being funded by CTCL all voted overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton that year. I would hate for St. Louis County to be added to that list. We have had enough political embarrassments with Stinger, Page, and Clancy alone. This partisan privatization of our elections can't stand. Imagine a future where wealthy individuals can essentially purchase the county or city election apparatus anywhere through such creative grants to accomplish their personal objectives, explained Phil Klein, the director of the Amstead Project of the Thomas More Society. Federal law preempts cities from accepting private federal election grants, and that those cities that have partnered with and received funds from the CTCL have done so without legal authority. It's clear this grant is not meant to be transparent, with Lisa calling the 4 o'clock meeting. Stand for something. For once, don't let politics get in the way of something that should be considered the one thing we are allowed to have that is fair. Next comment is from Angela Orovets. Please vote no on the CTCL grant. While I support everyone voting, I do not support private funds being used to achieve this. Next statement is from Lindsay Reed. St. Louis County Executive Sam Page and County Chair Lisa Clancy are at it again, trying to sneak this ballot harvesting grant through without residents' awareness. We don't need Zuckerberg's money to pay St. Louis County poll workers or for ballot distribution. We have $47 million in CARES money yet to be distributed and no transparency. Who's to say this will be different? I'm so sick of elected officials like Lisa Clancy and Sam Page taking notes from Hillary Clinton's playbook on how to rig an election. It didn't work out too well for her, don't forget that. Shame on you both, and shame on anyone who votes in favor of your shenanigans. No to this money. Vote Sam Page out of St. Louis County. He's just a mirror of Steve Stinger. Next comment is from Sue Insira. I want to write to you today to express my opposition to St. Louis County accepting the CTCL grant. There are currently 4 lawsuits in other states regarding the acceptance of money from this group. You are setting our county up for the same lawsuit, which then means more of our taxes wasted. Accepting money from the Center for Tech and Civic Life, CTCL, puts the sanctity of our election process in jeopardy. This group has been proven to be aligned with far left groups. Their grants are actually donations given to Democratic areas to ensure Democratic victories. Please use your due diligence and look into this yourself, as I do not have room in 400 words to give you all the studies that show the plan of this group. I urge you as your constituent and taxpayer to vote down the acceptance of these funds. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. Next comment is from Sarah Bernard. County Council members, I am asking you to vote no on the CTCL election grant. We don't need the involvement of the Zuckerbergs in our election process. Thank you. Next comment is from Tracy Lepper. I sincerely urge St. Louis County Council members to vote against the $2 million grant from CTCL. St. Louis County does not need to be involved with such an organization that is being sued in other out-of-state counties. The CTCL sincerely compromises the validity of our election results and can only cause more harm than good. If St. Louis County needs money for the elections, then why hasn't our county executive spent any of the emergency funds he has been sitting on for 5 months? Why is the grant going to the county and not the state to decide which counties are in need of help? I adamantly oppose this grant proposal, knowing we have no transparency or oversight to how it will be spent. We do not need to face a lawsuit after the sketchy business dealings of our former CE, county executive, and now the public distrust of Sam Page.
Continuing with public forum comments. From Jason Moore. I request that a full accounting of communications and agreements the county executives and council president Clancy's offices have had with the Center for Tech and Civic Life and how their solutions are being brought to bear in this year's election cycle in St. Louis County. This is an organization that has had a dubious history with how absentee or mail-in votes are gathered and tabulated. In fact, they have been challenged with lawsuits in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Michigan recently due to their questionable activities disenfranchising voters from having their votes tabulated accurately and equitably. I would like to have the County Council request a full audit and legal oversight of this agreement to happen post-haste, as the election is just 3 weeks away, with much at risk if this relationship is anything but on the up and up, which is highly unlikely. This does not pass the smell test and looks like a naked attempt to have a method to potentially harvest ballots until the chosen candidate's party, Page, Democrats, gets enough votes to win. Who formally applied for this grant, when and why? Is the county incapable of managing its funds properly to handle its own election board and support activities? Is the county going to inflict yet more taxpayer dollars in litigation costs, defending itself by deciding to go against the will of the people and entering into an agreement with an organization of ill repute? If necessary, I will add my name to that litigation if need be, and I'm sure many more county residents will stand shoulder to shoulder with me to move this forward. Please do not force our hands in challenging this formally in court. It will not serve anyone any good at all, except for continuing to fracture our already frayed relationship with our local government. And from Jenny Haas, please reject the election grant. Special interest groups should never be allowed to fund public elections. These grants violate the Help America Vote Act and the National Voter Registration Act. If the council accepts this grant, the council will be risking public confidence in the integrity of St. Louis County elections. Thank you for your time and service to our county. From Rachel Yost. Do not accept any grant money for the election, please. This election has so much drama associated, and money ties will only cloud judgment, obscure transparency, sow distrust even further into the people of St. Louis County. We want a clean, fair election. Please refuse the grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Their business is shady and linked to questionable activities. Ask why Clancy wants this so badly. Don't let money cloud your judgment on what is best for St. Louis County. And from Elizabeth Schweppe, taking over $2 million from the Center for Tech and Civic Life is reckless. By taking this money 3 weeks prior to an election, you are paving the way for corruption and a rigged election. There is no town in this county that needs $2 million in hand sanitizer and signs. Everyone knows what this organization does. They rig elections. No one wants to wake up the day after the election with doubt in their minds that the election was tampered with in any way, shape, or form. You knew the date of our election. It is the same every year. This was not a surprise. We have been living with this pandemic for 7 months and have received $173 million in COVID relief money. Use that towards PPE. We do not need a third party who is mired in lawsuits and corruption to handle our elections. If you decide to take this dirty money, then it must be used equally among all voting precincts, equally regardless of party line. Do not embarrass us nationally like you did with Stanger. And from Megan Mutter, St. Louis does not need grant money from a left-wing corrupt ballot harvesting organization. Say no to Bill 231. End the emergency, end the corruption. And from Scott Travis, I'm a longtime resident of St. Louis County, and I am writing to voice my strong opposition to accepting any private money such as the proposed $2 million grant from Center for Tech and Civic Life. Allowing private money like this to fund our elections could unduly affect the integrity and independence of our election board and the outcomes of our elections. Please do not allow our local elections to be purchased by any outside influence. From Chris Porter, a private partisan interest group should never fund our election. Vote against this grant. From Angela Jonas, please do not accept the $2 million grant from Center for Tech. This is not about helping people with coronavirus. This is about ballot harvesting, and we the people do not want any part of it. We don't want leftist private special interest organizations, Center for Tech and Civic Life, funding our elections. There are recent lawsuits in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. So just say no to the grant. Yet please vote yes for Bills 222 and 223, introduced by Harder and Fitch, that would remove unlimited power from the Health Department and Sam Page. We the people support these bills and want checks and balances for you, our elected officials working for us. Also, what is up with the DPH $30,000 grant to increase vaccine confidence? Unbelievable. We the people can make our own medical decisions and don't need the county pushing medical procedures on us. Say no. Bring back in-person county council meetings. We the people deserve to be able to sit in on our elected officials' meetings. Lastly, please lift all mandates and get our county 100% open. There isn't an emergency. From Joan Hoffman, if Lisa Clancy is successful in bringing up the grant from Center for Tech and Civic Life, vote no. If you vote yes, St. Louis County will be sued. Do you really want that? Shame on you, Sam Page, for trying to get money this way. You make Stanger look like a choir boy. And from Jennifer Weston, I write to you today to express my opposition to St. Louis County accepting the CTCL grant. With so much drama already surrounding this election, why on earth would you want to accept money from an outside organization like this one? Not to mention the fact that there are mounting lawsuits in other states regarding the acceptance of these grant funds. Are you prepared to waste taxpayer dollars defending your actions on this issue? If you care about transparency and the sanctity of our electoral process, you will decline these funds. Your job as council members is to work for all county residents, not just the ones who voted for you. And from Erica Reiser, I am writing out of concern over the privatization of our local elections. The CTCL grant seems to have questionable backing and does not seem to be bipartisan. I would hope the members of our county council would certainly shy away from any grant that would come with strings attached. As a private citizen, it is absolutely exhausting trying to determine if and where the deceit lies, or if a grant is simply unfair. We all deserve a level playing field. Politics is tiresome, and the very least we can expect from our local officials is that they are genuine, honest, and upfront as to where the money is coming from and where it will be spent. Thank you. And from Amber Mueller. Don't allow Facebook, Center for Tech and Civic Life, to purchase votes in our county. This is unethical and will result in an expensive and disastrous lawsuit that will undoubtedly challenge our election. 4 lawsuits have already been filed against government councils that have accepted grant funds from Mark Zuckerberg's organization, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Pennsylvania, and this should be obvious to all council members that this grant is illegal. There is no integrity in accepting this money. The very last thing that our county needs is added financial distress and a lawsuit. If you approve and accept this grant, not only will the county be sued, but each of you that votes for it will be included in the lawsuit. Heed this as a warning for your own personal protections of avoiding a lawsuit. Vote against the grant and save taxpayers' money. The projected budget for St. Louis County cannot handle the drain of a lawsuit this magnitude, nor should we allow outside influences to favor certain classes of voters over others. Stay honest. From Karen DeRee. I want to state my opposition to St. Louis County accepting the CTCL grant. There are currently lawsuits in other states regarding this issue. Please be transparent about the funds surrounding the election process. If you take this grant, you run the risk of questions arising and losing the trust of your constituents. From I am writing to urge you to vote no on the CTCL grant. This is a special interest grant, and we all know that those have no place in local governments that should not be supporting special interests. This does not represent me or my family needs. Please keep politics out of voting booths. And please do not think that those of us asking you to vote no as unable to think for ourselves on this matter and that you know better. I can promise you that many of us are highly educated and able to decide what is and what is not best for us, though you have not voted in favor of our own decision-making thus far. Please vote no on the CTCL grant. From Lisa Ryad. Please vote to decline the $2 million grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. This organization has been connected to ballot harvesting and election rigging in several cities. Additionally, it is completely inappropriate for our county to have billionaires living in other states involved in or influencing in any way our local elections. CTCL has too many ethical question marks in its storyline for us to accept money from them. St. Louis County should not stoop to this level of election funding and meddling from outside groups that have no direct stake in our county's welfare. This grant money is about influence and political favors, not democracy, and I ask you, please do not vote to accept it. From Richard Mueller. Please do not accept the grant from Mark Zuckerberg's Center for Tech and Civic Life. This is essentially allowing an outside influence to come in and to purchase votes in our county. This will harm the integrity of our election. Beyond being unethical, it will result in an expensive lawsuit that will undoubtedly challenge our election. 4 lawsuits have already been filed against government councils that have accepted grant funds from this organization: Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And this should be obvious to all council members that this grant is illegal. There is no honor or benefit to St. Louis County in accepting this money. The very last thing that our county needs is added financial stress and a lawsuit. Should you approve, not only will the county be sued, but each of you that votes for it will be included in the lawsuit. Take this as a warning for your own personal protections of avoiding a lawsuit. Vote against the grant and save taxpayers' money. Maintain dignity and integrity on the council and respect the voting process as it is designed to unfold. The projected budget for St. Louis County cannot handle the drain of a lawsuit this magnitude, nor should we allow outside influences to favor certain classes of voters over others. From Amy Eichmann. Please vote no on the proposed grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Lawsuits have already been filed against this organization in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. We don't need allegedly fraudulent outside influences meddling here. Regarding the election process, you obviously need to be laser focused on protecting and assisting voters in the high-risk group and preventing election fraud. These are process issues that should not require much additional funding. What they do require is competent management. 7 months should have been plenty of time to plan and prepare for this 100% foreseeable situation. And for Ryan Vardaman, I am submitting these comments in opposition of St. Louis County accepting any CTCL grant. There are enough problems that we as a county are facing that ride on this election without the added complications of accepting money from an outside organization like this. There are lawsuits popping up across the country in jurisdictions that have accepted these grants. So rejecting this grant will ensure we are not also faced with wasting additional public tax dollars in a legal fight. Our election process needs to be protected, and as such, should have as much transparency as possible. Please, I urge each of you to reject this grant and avoid the potential for problems it will create for St. Louis County. From Mary Werner, please do not approve the grant from CTCL, as this is a politically motivated group or any other private group. Lawsuits in other states will be easily copied for St. Louis County, likely costing us more while allowing outside influence in the upcoming election. Those that approve this grant will be involved in the forthcoming lawsuit. Your overreach during this pandemic has changed the involvement of the St. Louis County community. We are all watching and keeping track of your support and expect full audit of your work and financial dealings by an actual auditor. How money is spent needs to be above board and have no political leanings. And our final comment this afternoon is from Elizabeth Cohen. Good evening, County Council people. Tonight's subject is Bill 231 relating to a grant from the Center for Tech and Civic Life to support the Board of Election Commissioners related to the November 2020 election. Bill 231 is enticing you to illegally ballot harvest. Ballot harvesting is wrong. Ballot harvesting is fraudulent. Ballot harvesting is illegal. Ballot harvesting is a long disputed practice implicated in fraud that's come into the spotlight recently in many of these great United States. If you are in any way involved in ballot harvesting, you could go to prison. If you accept this grant, you are guilty of participating in this fraudulent act. Bad people are involved in the Center for Tech and Civic Life organization, specifically people who are using their dirty money, more than $2 million, to influence you into ballot harvesting. Back in 2016, Missouri State Representative Penny Hubbard was challenged and ultimately ousted for exactly this. Accept this grant and you will be ousted. Penny Hubbard tried to sneak this through before anyone knew to watch for this. Today, everybody is watching. We know what you are trying to sneak through. Mark Harder, my county council representative, will vote no. Mark Harder knows right from wrong. Mark Harder knows that prison is not where he wants to be. Mark Harder knows that he doesn't want to be ousted like Penny Hubbard. Mark Harder knows that Lisa Clancy desperately wants this fraudulent bill to pass. Mark Harder knows that Sam Page wants this fraudulent bill to pass. Lisa Clancy and Sam Page are so desperate to pass this bill that they called this special meeting just to try to convince all of you to give in to their fraudulent plans. Wouldn't it be a delightful sight to see Lisa Clancy and Sam Page in their very own prison cells facing each other? They could spend all day pointing blame at each other behind bars as we live our peaceful legal lives not in prison. Seriously, everybody sees exactly what you are planning to do. Just say no. Vote no to Bill 231. If you vote yes and it passes, you are immediately involved. This implicates you. You will be involved in something illegal. Typically, there are only a few people who know what you are trying to accomplish. Many eyes are watching. vote no on Bill 231. Madam Chair, that's all the public forum comments.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. As you all can see, that this bill has generated some discussion from our community. We do still have Mr. Stream and Mr. Fay from the Board of Elections here. We do have a vote to perfect on our agenda, but before I move to do so, I would like to offer the opportunity for any further discussion, particularly on the topic of this grant. Councilwoman Dunaway.
I would like to hear from the directors. What is ballot harvesting? And is that a problem here? Hey, Eric, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Oh,
Okay.
there we go.
Sorry about that. Just a quick and dirty on ballot harvesting. That is a practice that, one, is illegal in Missouri, but it is legal in a few states. And it's basically the practice of a third party of some type gathering absentee or mail ballots from voters and then delivering them to the election authority. That is illegal in Missouri. Only the voter can deliver the ballot themselves or somebody related within 2 degrees of the voter. And if any of you have been up by our office lately, we have a number of staff outside. As voters bring their ballots back, they have to show ID. They have to sign for the ballot. So that is not even something that this money could be used for. But I think Rick wants to explain just maybe a little bit more about that or operation.
Well, yeah, I know a lot of people are on, participants are on listening, and probably many of them who wrote those letters. I'm the Republican director. Eric is the Democrat director. We have our 2 deputy directors here, the Democrat and Republican. The St. Louis County Election Board is a bipartisan board. We are governed by 4 commissioners, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, who are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state Senate. This decision to accept this grant money, which we applied for, was unanimous among the 4 commissioners and the 2 directors that we accept this money. It is going to be used by the election board. It is not being used by the county executive or the county council. We control the money. The only strings attached to this money are that it be used for election expenses in this year, from June 15th through the end of the year, which means that we can use it to defray expenses that we have already incurred and are incurring at this moment for the August and November elections. These are, as we've written to the council, and it's out in the public arena now, these are expenses for the additional temporary people that we've had to hire because of the vast number of absentee ballots that have gone out. We have a lot of additional employees, a lot of additional overtime, tremendous number of printing expenses that are in addition to what we had budgeted in our budget last year. The postage is extensively higher than it was before. There are many other expenses that we've incurred because of COVID that we can use this money to defray. Whether we get this money or not, we are going to continue to operate our elections fairly, honestly, with no benefit to one party or one candidate over another. Again, the St. Louis County Election Board is a bipartisan board. We have Republicans and Democrats at every step of the way, in every part of the process, throughout the process of elections here in St. Louis County. Nothing is going to happen that Republicans or Democrats aren't going to agree upon at all. I'm going to let Eric throw in.
I think, I'm sorry, we'll take any other questions. Thanks for the opportunity.
I have one more. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Councilwoman Dunaway.
So what is your overall view of this organization? I mean, you've heard all these comments that they only go to Democratic counties. What other Missouri counties are accepting a grant from this organization? And what do you know about this organization? Or how do you feel about it in your election board circles?
Yeah, thanks for that question. at least 30 other Missouri counties that we know of have already accepted and are using money from this grant. Counties like Bates, Carter, Christian, Clay, Cole, Davies, Greene, Schuyler, Scotland, Wayne, Sullivan, of course, St. Louis City, Jackson County, Boone County, Green. So, like I said, 30 other counties. There's another grant that is very similar to this from the Center for Election Innovation and Research, funded by the same source, that the Secretary of State took a grant from them for $1.4 million to do voter education around the election. CTCL in particular has done some work in Missouri before. I know they have worked with us here in St. Louis County back in 2017 when we were first establishing our social media accounts. I know, for example, that CTCL has worked with the Pulaski County Clerk and the Laclede County Clerk to establish websites. Those counties didn't have any election websites prior to that. So CTCL really does, at least from our experience just in Missouri, they do a lot of just nuts and bolts election administration work. And they work with local election administrators to help them, run their offices a little bit more efficiently.
And to follow up with what Eric said about the company, we know that in other states have other laws and other rules, and some things may be going on in those other states. Here in Missouri, as Eric said, it's not legal to do ballot harvesting. We do not have early voting in Missouri, and this money, we have done no voter outreach from the St. Louis County Election Board, so that's not an expense that's going to be reimbursed. So again, I'd just like to reassure the public that this money is going to be used to reimburse the St. Louis County Election Board and therefore the St. Louis County government for expenses that we are incurring as we speak. Well, they're all legal, and all fair, and very bipartisan.
Thank you both very much.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilwoman Days, go ahead.
I believe I sent my colleagues some information about this, both pro and con, about the organization, but I also included a list of about 29 counties that have accepted this money, this grant money from this organization. As Rick indicated, that our election board is bipartisan. Democrat, Republican, they all have to have the same. They have to have the same number of Republicans as Democrats. They can't enter a room with ballots without a Democrat and Republican flashing the key fob there to get in. It really is an excellent way to do an election or have an election board. But I would also say that that is not the case with all election authorities. For instance, St. Charles County is an elected position, and they only included in this grant process as well. Many of these 29 counties here are very Republican counties, and they have accepted some of these monies. So the inference that this is only for urban areas, predominantly Democratic areas, and to move forward with only a Democratic agenda is just not correct. Someone did mention that I wasn't the elections director for several years there, and I can tell you during this time you are begging and pleading with people to come and work this, because it's a long day. You don't really get paid a lot of money. But what has added and exacerbated this situation is the fact that we have many of our seniors who work there, and they are not willing to put themselves at risk because of this COVID pandemic that we're in now. So, I just want to dispel the fact in my mind that this is a Democratic agenda. As a matter of fact, I thought Zuckerberg was a Republican. I did not know that. But nonetheless, I think that if this money does not come from this particular grant, and by the way, the Secretary of State is also included in here as receiving $1.4 million of this money. And I know that the Secretary of State is a Republican. So to have this in a Democrat-Republican aura, I think is very misleading to a lot of people. So that's my 2 cents worth in looking at this. This money is going to come from somewhere because we're going to have to pay these people extra money in order to work. We have confusion out there about who has to notarize their ballots, who doesn't. And so there is some educational component that is going to be needed for this as well. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out as some background in this, and hope you all were able to read the information that I sent about the pros and cons of this initiative. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Days. Any further comments or discussion from the council on this matter?
Madam Chair.
Councilman Fitch, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't see conspiracies here. I don't see it as a Republican or a Democrat issue. My only issue is private money coming in to fund our elections. And for Rick and Eric, have we ever accepted money from any other organization in St. Louis County for a similar type of donation?
In my time here, the only grants that we've accepted that I know of are from the Secretary of State's office.
So never from a private institution or private organization like this, ever?
I've never been aware of an opportunity prior to this, but no.
Would we accept money from anybody that wanted to give money to the Board of Elections? For example, if Rex Sigfield tomorrow said, I want to give $2 million to St. Louis County Board of Elections, would we accept that as well?
So I'll speak for myself, and I'll let Rick answer as well, that we not only have we worked with CTCL before, we know they have a good track record in Missouri working with election authorities. But before we accept anything from anybody, we obviously figure out if there are strings attached, what the requirements are. And from the reputation and the track record of working with us, and the fact that the grant is fairly open-ended and just that we have to use it for our election expenses this year, we felt that it was appropriate. If somebody else wanted to offer us money, I think we would have to evaluate what their track record was in regard to election administration and what, if any, stipulations came along with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The major portion of my acceptance to this is that there are no strings attached, except that it has to be used for election expenditures from June 15th on. So I don't see any conspiracy at all. I mean, we're just going to use it to pay off our bills that we're generating here. As Councilwoman Days said, that it's just a difficult year. We have to pay more money for workers, a lot of temporary workers, a lot of extra printing and postage, a lot of extra expenditures that we did not, don't normally have for an election, and we certainly did not put in last year's budget. If we're allowed to use this money, we're going to be able to pay off a lot of the bills that otherwise are going to have to be paid by the St. Louis County taxpayers this year.
So did you plan on coming back to the council for a supplemental to cover all those things? What if this money didn't come in? What dollar amount are we talking about we'd be short?
About $1.4 million.
Yeah, right now, I think conservatively estimating, we figured we would probably need another $500,000. It wouldn't be unlike in 2016, there was a court ruling that changed the way absentee ballots worked, and I think we had to ask the council in 2016 for I think it was a $900,000 supplemental appropriation. So yes, at some point, once we were able to ascertain exactly how much we were going to need, we would have probably had to come to the council for that.
Okay, those are my only questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Eric and Rick.
Welcome.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Tracus.
Thank you. Gentlemen, is there any time sensitivity to this grant? Are you under some deadline to accept it?
There's no deadline as such to accept it, other than obviously the election is imminent. And as Rick mentioned, we're incurring costs as we speak. So, we would certainly like to have it as soon as possible so we can use it for those expenses we're incurring.
So if I understand correctly, then there's nothing stopping you from accepting the grant after the election is over, your results are certified, and then using that money to cover your expenses as you've just mentioned. Would that be accurate?
I was going to say, well, we'd have to have the issue. Well, if we don't get the money, then we're going to have to ask the taxpayers to pay for the funds. But the council has to vote at some point in time, or they don't vote. They can just deny it. But I'm not sure it would make any difference if it's after the election or not.
That was my point. So you could certainly reimburse the county if they advance funds prior to the election. And my guess is that won't happen in any case, but certainly the funds could be used for any expenses you've incurred up to and beyond the election, whether you accept it before or after the election. Yes?
So, Councilman Tracus, in order to incur some of these expenses like extra temporary employees and so forth, we're just essentially having to do budget amendments to move money from other places in our budget. And then once hopefully the grant is approved, we would then reimburse those things. So at some point, probably before the election, we will kind of run out of money to move. And so we may come to a point where there are some expenses we can't undertake because of that.
But the point is, there's nothing stopping you from accepting the grant after the election. Is that correct?
I would say there's nothing legally preventing that, but mechanically, like I just explained, it may prevent us from actually, spending some money.
I'll take that as a yes to my question. So, wouldn't that assuage any concerns about the influence of accepting the grant on the results of this election if, in fact, you accept the money after the election? You've just heard dozens of concerns from citizens in St. Louis County regarding the auspices under which this grant is being offered. So if the election is over and you then accept the grant, doesn't that in some way ameliorate or at least address some of the concerns articulated that we heard today? Because there's no influence of that organization or the money prior to the election. Well,
it could perhaps, hypothetically, it could perhaps ameliorate some of those folks' concerns. With all due respect to those people, and I appreciate their comments, I don't feel like those are reasonable concerns. But it may perhaps make them feel better.
Yeah, I understand their concerns. There's a lot of information out there on the web and other places. It's just that, as I tried to explain, we're a bipartisan board, and we're, as a Republican, you and I are Republicans, Councilman Tracus. I'm not going to allow anything to happen in our office that is going to hurt Republicans. And I'd say Director Fay would be the same way with Democrats. So we make sure that everything is on the up and up here in this office. And with this grant, again, the only strings attached are that it be used for expenses to run these elections. And I explained we're not doing any ballot harvesting. There's no early voting. We don't have any voter outreach. There's nothing that we're using this money for that could be in any way construed as trying to favor one party over another or one candidate over another. We control the money here. It's not controlled by the county executive or the county council. It's our expenses here at the election board. We have 2 Republican commissioners, 2 Democrat commissioners, and a bipartisan directors here. We've all agreed that we should accept this grant money.
And thank you for that. And no one's suggesting that you guys don't try to run a fair election. This is about any concerns with regard to the organization that's ordering this money and accepting private money, where heretofore that has not been the case. Now, as I understand it, you guys have done, I believe the response was a conservative estimate that you may need as much as $500,000. But with respect to this $2 million+ that is the subject of the grant, unless I'm missing something, you guys have not put together any precise budget with respect to how that money will be spent. Is that accurate?
We've identified a number of categories that we know we will spend it on. For instance, additional overtime that's not been budgeted for, additional temporary employees that weren't budgeted for, additional hazard pay for the election judges, additional postage and mailing costs for all the additional absentee ballots that have been sent. So for a number of those categories, those are all relatively large expenditures, we've identified specific things. But as Rick mentioned earlier, what we will seek to do is go recoup costs from the August election prior to this. And so we're just going to wait and see what we have left to go back and recoup those costs with.
So the items you've mentioned, have you itemized it and put specific dollars amounts by those items?
Do we have specific estimates for those? Yes.
So I would appreciate it if you would supply that information to the council. That may help us in considering this matter. And then lastly, as you both know, I sent a letter to you last week concerning some concerns about mail-in ballots in your office using the wrong envelopes, directing citizens to send their mail-in ballots to an address that you haven't occupied for 4 years. So I understand that may well have been an error. I doubt seriously that was a one-off incident, but it again points to concerns with respect to the need for accuracy and efficiency and thoroughness in this election. And so it doesn't help me anyway with considering the implications associated with this grant and the organization behind it. But I'll leave that for another day. Thank you both for your candor today. I appreciate it. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Tracus. Any last comments or questions? All right. Please read the bill for perfection, Madam Clerk.
Bill number 231, introduced by Councilmember Clancy. An ordinance authorizing the county executive to accept a grant of up to $2,048,474 from the Center for Tech and Civic Life, appropriating the same for support of the Board of Election Commissioners and the facilitation of the November 2020 election, and authorizing the county executive to execute necessary documents.
I move to perfect Bill number 231.
Second, Dunaway.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Days,
Aye.
Councilmember Dunaway,
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch,
No.
Councilmember Gray,
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy,
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus,
No.
Councilmember Harder. Madam Chair, on the motion to perfect Bill number 231, there are 4 ayes, 2 noes, and 1 absent.
Motion carries. Bill number 231 is perfected. Also, our original request from the Board of Elections just over a week ago was to move it through to final passage. And I believe that they did make a case for doing that again tonight. I would like to provide the opportunity for that, should that be the will of the council. So as such, I move to enact rule number 19 to suspend the rules, to suspend rule number 6, in particular, pursuant to advancing bill number 231 to the final passage order of business. This requires a simple majority. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Ma'am, I have a question for the county attorney. We didn't give us a chance to have discussion. You went right to a vote.
Yes, Councilman Fitch. I believe Jen is on the line.
Ms. Frank, doesn't this have to be on the agenda for 14 days before we can finally approve this?
Yes, any bill has to be on the agenda for 14 days unless all 7 council members agree to allow for a motion to take it up for final passage. And the chair can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that this bill was introduced last week. Is that correct? It was.
You are correct. Okay, I stand corrected. Then we will not be moving it to final passage because we will not have a unanimous vote for that.
I thought it was introduced the week before.
Let's go ahead and check that.
No, I'm pretty sure it was introduced last week.
Yeah, I believe it was.
Yes, it
Okay,
was.
well, let's go ahead and still take the vote to advance, just for the record. So I then I'll change I will amend my motion I move to advance bill number 231 to take up on the final passage order of business. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Days,
Aye.
Councilmember Dunaway,
Aye.
Councilmember Fitch,
No.
Councilmember Gray,
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy,
Aye.
Councilmember Tracus,
No.
Councilmember Harder. Madam Chair, on the amended motion to advance bill number 231 to the final passage order of business, there are 4 ayes, 2 noes, and 1 absent.
Motion
And
fails. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was trying to see if Councilman Harder had joined the meeting, because I was going to say that motion couldn't have succeeded with not all 7 council members in attendance.
That's true.
Okay. Well, I believe it's a moot point at this point anyway. So thank you. Yes, I haven't seen Councilman Harder today. All right. Well, the motion fails. It will remain on our final passage order of business for next week's meeting, and we will take it up again then. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Eric, for sticking with us throughout this long meeting and providing such good information. We appreciate it. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there
Second.
a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.